Go. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This is our fourth installment of our Winemaker Talks. This has been going extremely well for us, and we're getting great response and great feedback from everybody that's tuning in. As always, we're here to educate, distract, and entertain as much as possible, and engage with some of our friends out there in all over the country, and of course with our dear friends and collaborators and colleagues in Greece. Today we are super stoked and excited to have one of my dear friends, one of our great wine personalities, Stelios Boutaris. Stelios Boutaris from Yianni Estate is a gentleman that I have known for many moons. We started working together only 5 years ago because I think we were too good of friends to want to work together. So we're worried about ruining our friendship. But we finally coaxed each other to do this, and I am very happy that we represent one of the great seminal pioneering producers of Greece, and specifically of northern Greece. His father, a very important figure in the Greek wine world and the Greek political world. His family, a legendary family in the space of wine, of wine marketing, of wine promotion, historic vineyard sites, historic family, and Stelio in his very own sense, a very historic guy. So Stelios, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time, and we're going to start asking you a few questions here. So Stelios, welcome.
Hi Ted, thank you very much for having me. It's the first time I'm doing it, guys. So I'll correct my mistakes, but it's very exciting to at least even through the web to connect with you. So thank you, Ted.
Right. Well, thank you. Well, we're excited. This is fun for us, and I hope we want to make it fun for you. So we're going to ask the most basic initial questions that I do literally with everybody, because we want to get everybody's particular insight, because everybody has their own particular story. And you were kind of talking about this before everybody tuned in. So how's COVID-19 impacted your world, your operations, your life, your family? How are you guys dealing with it? And tell us some of the newest news out of Greece about COVID and what Greece is doing, because I know some news came in today. So tell us about that.
Right. Well, it's been a big hit, of course, to everybody. You have to realize that most of the wines we sell is on premise. So even in Greece, about 80% of our business is on premise. I think in the States or in other export markets, it's even more. So we've been really hit since all the restaurants, hotels, and everything had been closed. However, at the vineyard, we have not stopped a day. This is the time of the season. It's the time of the season that you have to be there. So we haven't stopped a day in the vineyard, and of course we haven't stopped at the winery as well. Maybe we slowed down a little bit the first couple of weeks, but now we're up and running. We're bottling all the 18 reds, and we have to finish with the 19 whites, which are almost half bottled. So I'm kind of optimistic that it's not going to be as bad as I mean, I'm a natural optimist, so I'm really hoping that something is going to happen towards the end of the year, and we're going to have some wine change. On the other hand, things have been changing every day. As regarding Greece, I think it's all the bad publicity that we had the last 10 years with the crisis and everything has been overturned the last month. Greece has been very good in handling this crisis. The government took all the right actions, I believe, and actually we Greeks obeyed. For some very funny, we really obeyed, and it's been very quiet. People have been watching the news at 6 o'clock and doing what the government has been telling them. As a result, we have one of the lowest rates of deaths and in the world, and let's hope we keep it this way.
Great. Yeah, it's been impressive that you've kept the inner anarchist suppressed in Greece.
Right. To be honest, I never expected it. It looks like the country is opening up as of Monday a little bit, starting with the smaller stores. Then we're gonna have some services like hairdress salons. You know, the women are getting like crazy about it. You know, they really demand it.
Yeah.
So really, we're gonna have some stores opening up. Then towards the end of May, beginning of June, restaurants will start opening up. Which of course is going to be a big question mark. How they're going to open up? They're talking about people staying away from each other, and you know, once you have like 60 seats, you can sit only 15, which is really a problem. You know, we're going to lose the whole sense of the get together of the taverna, where you can sit around and you can talk to the guy next to you, and you know, two different pares, how do you call it? Like two different
groups
of people just become one friend. You know, this is all going to be difficult. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the hospitality industry. I think a lot of restaurants that closed down will never open up again. We are trying to figure out here how we can help the hospitality industry. Unfortunately, in Greece, it's not as organized, especially talking about the service. Let's see. Unfortunately, Greece is not as organized as other countries where they have organizations that can actually, you can send the money or help somehow. We're trying to figure out ways to do that. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. But, you know, if you think about it, I mean, the Greek hospitality industry, the Greek tourist industry is about 750,000 people every year. These are people who live continental Greece and go to the islands or go to the tourist areas. These people are going to be having a very hard time. They estimate that not more than 250 to 300,000 will be able to find work in July. So a lot of these people, I don't know what they're going to do. So it's going to be a big hit for the hospitality industry, which is a huge part of Greek GNP.
Right, and it's a huge part of wine sales as well for all your wineries. And you also stated a little bit earlier when we were talking, hotels in Athens are going to open up towards the end of May, and then
the first week of June, we're going to have what we call the city hotels, the 12 months a year hotels, and hotels that open only for the summer will open up July 1st.
Okay, and when Stelios says the summer hotels, he's referring to the resorts, the vacation oriented hotels. So if you guys are looking to come to Greece and are looking to come this summer, which we desperately need people to come, know that don't book anything in June because you won't have anywhere to stay. So let's talk about a little bit about what you do, about your craft, about your family, about the winery. Tell us a little bit in a few words. You guys started this great estate, Yianni, in northern Greece. Tell us a little bit about, and your father obviously was in a multi-generational wine business with his family. Tell how this occurred and why it occurred back in the mid-90s. What happened? What prompted your father and you to go on to this venture? And we're going to show a little bit. We're going to do a little screen sharing and show a couple little pictures of Stelio here and his father. Actually, here's a great picture of Stelio and his father, Yianni Boutaris.
Well, yeah, I mean, my family has been in the business since 1879, mostly as négociant. However, in the late 60s, my father bought an estate, bought some land, bought actually a forest, in Naoussa, and he planted the first Xinomavro vineyard in Greece. The first organized Xinomavro vineyard in Greece. And then, unfortunately, in 1996, my father and my uncle had a fallout. They didn't agree on some strategic issues about the business, so my father left the big Boutari business, and he sold his shares to my uncle, and then he bought this estate in Naoussa, plus small vineyards in Amindion. Yes, this is the estate. So in 1996, Yianni started, focusing mostly on Xinomavro, and little by little, we expanded also in Amindion with our whites. So we focus mostly in the northwest of Greece, in the regions of Naoussa and Amindio, trying to produce estate-grown wines. That's about it in a nutshell, really what we've been doing and what's Yianni all about.
Okay, and you mentioned, that Naoussa, and tell us a little bit more about Naoussa as a wine growing
Right.
region,
Yeah,
and
Naoussa
why
is...
and why you and your father decided that this plot of land, the single monopole, the Ramnista, would be the beginning of the whole idea.
Right. Well, I mean, the family has been in Naoussa since the previous century, and I'm talking about the 19th century. This is where the family has been trading, really. I mean, if you go, even Naoussa, there's the first winery built in 1908. So I think it was just because they were there, really, at one point. Although the family comes from Nymphaeon, my great-great-grandfather left Nymphaeon, and he went for a better fortune in Thessaloniki, and then he had his brother-in-law, both was based in Naoussa, and that's how it was. But then my father wanted to find some land in Naoussa, and he found this plot there that actually on the highest place, on the highest spot, the highest elevation of the whole appellation. No appellation at that time, of course, right? But it was right on the hills of Mount Vermion. So it has a what differentiates, I think, this vineyard is has a very nice breeze coming from the mountain. So it creates a very big difference in temperature between night and day. That actually is very good, I think, during the growing season in the summer. So it was kind of, on the one hand, a little bit by this is what you found. On the other hand, now, I mean, this is one of the largest single estates in Greece.
How large is the Ramnista vineyard?
Our vineyard, I mean, the Ramnista vineyard is a little bit bigger because it has some more plots on next to ours. Some of the other people use the name Ramnista for the whole area, but no other wine called Ramnista at this point. Our vineyard is it used to be 46 hectare when my father bought it in the beginning. So, no, sorry, 48, and then I bought another 8. So it's total of 56 hectare is the total area. About 40 hectares are planted at this day with vines.
Okay, so
divided in 46 different plots.
In 46 different parcels, and I think we actually have a little. Here are some of the parcels and how you farm them. So what is the soil profile? What are the great attributes, the physical attributes, and the climate in this region?
Yeah. Well, the climate is cold Mediterranean. We're only about 100 kilometers from the Aegean. So we get the nice breeze. On the other hand, it feels that you are up in the mountains. Although the altitude of the vineyard is not very big. I mean, the vineyard starts from 120 meters, goes all the way to 300 meters altitude. So it's not very high. For example, Amindion is at 750 vineyards. However, it feels that you are up north there. So the climate is definitely Mediterranean there on the cold side. As I said before, what makes a big difference is this nice breeze we get from behind the mountain, from Amindion, coming down in the summer during the night. That actually gives a big drop in temperature during the night. And the soil is mostly clay. However, what we've seen is that, my brother, he studied at UC Davis, and then he came back after UC Davis, and he did a lot of research in the vineyard. And we realized that not all plots are very different. We're very lucky. We always compare Naoussa to Burgundy compared to Bordeaux, meaning that our Naoussa is very much vineyard driven. So you might have in the same area, you might have one plot that actually is different from the plot next to it because of the soil structure.
And here's a slide that kind of talks about that, right, Stelios?
Right. Yeah. So for example, what we realize is that quite acidic soils with a low pH are not very good for Xinomavro. while they're better for Syrah, for example. Where higher alkalic soils are better for Xinomavro, especially like plot 5, plot 4, where we have a higher percentage of limestone. This is really great for Xinomavro to be aged. Xinomavro in more acidic soils, there you have, you make a Xinomavro, and we see that it's great for color, great for aromas, but not great for the body. So most of these, the vineyards planted in more acidic soils are made into an everyday wine like the Naoussa Yianni we just launched.
Okay, so you mentioned other varieties. What other varieties do you have? What varieties do you have planted on the vineyard?
Well, in 1990, my father, well, at that time it was a big Greece, the Greece wine scene was changing. They had the big push for the international varieties. Everybody was drinking Cabernet, Chardonnay. Everybody wanted these grapes. So my father decided to plant Syrah and Merlot. He didn't plant any Cabernet. So he planted Syrah and Merlot. Merlot has not done very well because Merlot is early ripening. And so very often we have to harvest Merlot either like on August 20th, for example, with very high alcohol level, but without the phenolic maturity. So we're still trying to find ways to make Merlot a little bit more ripe without having too much alcohol. This we haven't managed yet. We're trying. And then, however, Syrah has fared very well in Naoussa. It's harvested towards the end of September. Very nice growing season. So I think Syrah is from Naoussa, especially this vineyard, is really fantastic. More like old world Syrah. So beautiful fruit, the opportunity to age. The reason he did it is because he thought it would be like for benchmarking reasons. Greek wine at that time nobody knew about Greek wine. It was just starting. So he wanted to show that we can make a good Syrah.
Okay, so you have Merlot, Syrah, Xinomavro, of course.
Xinomavro, of course, is mostly Xinomavro there. Then you have Syrah and Merlot, and then I planted later, at the beginning of 2006, 2008. I planted a little bit of Malbec, Petit Verdot, and what we've seen is very interesting. We planted a little bit of Mavrodaphne as well. Mavrodaphne from the south of Greece. It's the variety of Achaia in the North Peloponnese. We planted a little bit of Mavrodaphne. And after 10 years of experimenting, we're starting seeing some very nice results. Dry Mavrodaphne.
Fantastic. That's exciting. So, in regarding to you mentioned ripening, you said Syrah tends to ripen towards the end of September. How about Xinomavro? When do you see bud break? When do you see ripening? Give us a little idea.
Yeah, we start Xinomavro towards the end of March. We have the bud break on the 25th of March usually. This year it's really funny. We had bud break, and then we had a week of really terrible weather. I don't know if you got. Just putting it on. We snowed in Naoussa. It didn't snow. It snowed in the mountains actually. On the mountains, which is only next to Naoussa and Avinia, there's probably the best ski resort in Greece, only 14 kilometers away. And it snowed more than 1.5 meters.
Wow.
It didn't snow all winter, and then it snowed towards the end of March. In Amindion, we had a lot of snow in the vineyards everywhere. So that was kind of scary, to be honest. However, the temperatures did not drop below -2, -3, so it wasn't that bad. Okay. Even in Amindion, we didn't have like a -10, -15, which we can actually really kill the vineyards.
Right.
The grapes. So then usually we have you have end of May, you have flowering, and then usually we have the slow ripening season. Xinomavro used to be harvested towards the end, usually towards the end of September, around September 25th. However, the last few years we'll be pushing the harvest date a little bit back, about a week, 10 days, depending. What we've seen is that when you harvest it a little bit later, you tend to get riper tannins, which is all what we have, in Xinomavro and tannins. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Since the later dates of harvesting, do you think you attribute this to climate change? Is it due to different cultivation techniques, or is it a combination of both?
I'm sorry, I missed that. I missed that, Ted. Okay, I didn't hear you for a minute.
The movement, the later harvest dates, do you
Uh-huh.
attribute that to climate change, A, or B, techniques in the vineyard, cultivation techniques, or a little bit of both?
I would say techniques in the vineyard, the way we do it.
Okay.
Trying to bring down the tannins. Of course, another problem is created. You have higher alcohol levels, and this is something that we try to avoid. We don't like the wines to be above 14 and a half max. I think it's already a lot. I mean, it would be great if we can have 13 and a half up to 14 max and have the same ripening. This is something we're trying to work on. And, you find it sometimes in some older Xinomavros, some older Xinomavros that are kind of riper, but it was mostly because of the year was good, Xinomavro is one of those varieties that the year in, year out, you really have differences in vintages compared to other varieties in Greece. Because in Greece, more or less, the weather is the same year in, year out. You don't have like a really bad vintage. You don't have like hail in July. That's very rare. We had it in 2014, but I hope that won't happen another 20 years, compared to France, for example, where you have big differences in vineyard.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about Xinomavro, because you keep on mentioning Amidion, and for everybody out there, Stelio and his family also have a lot of plantings, a lot of vineyards in Amidion. They have a winery in Amidion too, and they've been there for over 20 years. They are also, with Alpha State, one of the pioneers of this appellation of Amidion, which is the cooler appellation just to the west of Naoussa. And this is where mostly, and kind of here gives a little illustration of where Naoussa is here, and you go up this mountain range to Amidion. This kind of gives you most of the wines that Yianni cultivates in the cooler climates of Amidion from Xinomavro are sparkling rosé, some of their white wines, most of their white wines. Give us an idea, though, of what the different fruit, Xinomavro, the expressions of Xinomavro from Amidion and Naoussa, because you're uniquely capable of doing this because you are producing Xinomavro in both regions.
Right. Well, as you see in the map, I mean, and as I said before, I mean, you see, if you go here from towards the water, the sea is on the bottom right part of your of the screen. So Naoussa is definitely Mediterranean climate, But then you have this big mountain behind it that actually separates. Then you go to Amidion, where you have the big plateau of Amidion. It used to be a big lake there. Now there are only 4 lakes left. So one thing is that one is at around 200 meters elevation. Amidion is 700 meters elevation. 2, in Amidion you have continental climate. It's like mild continental. However, it gets very warm in the summer, very, very cold in the winter. In Naoussa, it's more Mediterranean climate. And then big also difference, since it was a lake in Amidion. In Amidion, the soil is much more sandy, while in Naoussa it's much more clay. In Naoussa it's much more richer, the soil. Amidion is very, 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 very poor soil. As a result, and Amidion, have to say that there are two appellations in Greece that are 100% Xinomavro: Naoussa and Amidion. Amidion is one of these places where it used to be 100% Xinomavro. You didn't have any other varieties if you go 20 years back. However, the problem with Amidion, because of the cold weather, Xinomavro was always it used to be very difficult to mature. So that's why they gave for rosé and sparkling rosé an appellation in Amidion as well. Now, the difference in the wines, I think the wines of Naoussa are much more bigger in the mouth, much more stronger tannins, longer aging, I believe. In Amidion, you have much more cherry style, In Naoussa, you have more like red fruit, red forest fruit. In Amindon, you have more like cherries, strawberries. The wines are much more spicy. The wines are a little bit more fruity, I believe. They don't have the earthiness that the Naoussa wines have. I would say I would say that in Amindon, the wines are a little more, the reds, the Xinomavro reds are a little more elegant than the Naoussa reds. So yes, I think there's a big difference in the wine. And now if you taste the Kaliriza 17, I think it was a fantastic vintage compared to 16, which was not great. If you taste the 17, I think you're gonna see a big style difference. Now, what we also do, we'll talk about it later. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but let's tell everybody, Kaliriza is their single vineyard bottling of Xinomavro from Amidjon. And their classic wines from Naoussa and Xinomavro is, of course, the Ramista vineyard wine. We're going to talk about that for a second in terms of how you assemble that wine and what kind of oak treatment you do. And they also have Diaparos, which is their single block Xinomavro. And now, as of 2017, we have a new bottling of the younger vines in different parcels of the appellation called the Village, Cuvée Village. So now that we understand the differences of a Amidjon fruit versus Xinomavro fruit, and from Naoussa, Xinomavro fruit from Naoussa, as you stated, bigger mouthfeel, much more that olive tapenade and stewed tomatoes, much more than an Amidjon, more delicacy, you would say, more red fruit than Amidjon. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Ramista, being that that's one of the most famous Xinomavros in all of Greece, obviously, but right. It's also internationally, it's one of the standard bearers of a great Xinomavro single vineyard. And you mentioned earlier that it's 40 to 50 blocks, different soil profiles. Tell us about the construction of Ramista. Right. Tell us about the barrel treatment and what you've done in the last 5 to 10 years in changing things at the winery.
Well, if I would say one thing that defines Ramista is assemblage, blending. We're very lucky that we have these different plots that are vinified separately or according to soil structure and, of course, healthiness of grapes. Then, depending of how we feel the fruit of this year. Usually, however, we have some blocks that always give the better fruit. We'll go to the barrels for a first aging, and after 6 months, we'll do a first assembly, then go back to the barrels. Then after 12 to 18 months, depending on the year again, we'll do a second blending, and then the final blend is ready to harvest. To give you an example, now we're sitting on 17 and 18 already sitting in our cellar, and we're now selling. We just finished the 16. We're just starting with the 17.
And so 17 and 18.
Actually, no. I'm sorry. I missed that. We just finished the 15 in the States, and we just started with the 16. Correct? I think we're still selling the 16 now, and the 17 and the 17 is all those 16 is already sitting for a year now in bottle. And the 17 and the 17 is also sitting in bottle. Okay. Now, regarding the oak treatment, we've been doing a lot of changes for that the last few years. Traditionally, my father would buy a lot of new barrels, put the wine in new barrels, about 50% new barrels at least. All the barrels were maximum 3-4 years old. What we've seen is that we like Xinomavro is a fragile variety. We see that too much oak can actually kill the wine. I mean, you're tasting the 2000, 2001, really fantastic vintages. And I feel sometimes that the oak is too much there. So we've been moving a lot to bigger barrels, 500-liter barrels for aging, and actually older barrels. They would stay for like 6 years, maybe. We try to avoid to go on the first year barrels. So very often, what we do, we send a lot of barrels to Amindon for the whites, and then after 2-3 years with the whites, they come back to Naoussa as second after white only, which makes a big difference, of course, right?
Sure.
second or third year barrels to go to the red. What we've also seen is that we got these new tanks, these 5-ton vertical tanks that actually we vinify their wooden tanks, and we see the big difference in the quality of the wine there as well. So,
right.
In one word, blending is a thing. So you have a lot of different things that we do in the winery, and then we put them all together for a final blend. To give an example, we harvest only from the vineyard about 150, 160 tons of grapes. So that's about 80 tons of, about 200 tons of grapes. So it's about 100 tons of wine. And Ramnista is only 35 tons.
Right.
So there's a lot of selection onto the final blend.
And we've seen, and honestly, working with these wines now for almost 4 or 5 vintages, 6 vintages almost, I've absolutely loved the change with the wooden fermenters, the softer approach and more judicious approach that you're using with wood. And we've also noticed the better fruit that's coming off the vineyard as well.
That's the idea. That's the idea. I mean, we wanted to bring out the fruit a little bit more. The traditional Greek reds used to be big and heavy and sturdy. I think it's nice to keep the profile of the grape at the same time, really bringing out the fruit that makes a big difference, which is so fantastic for Xinomavro.
Okay, awesome. Now, listen, one of the big things that we love to do with our winemakers when we have you online, and one of the important things to me, Stelio, as you know, if you know me for 20 years, wines are great, the story's great, but it's about the people. It's about you. It's about who's behind these wines, what makes these wines special are the personalities behind these wines and the labor behind these wines and the people that work every day in these vineyards. But we want to know a little bit about Stelios Boutaris because you are an intriguing figure. And so we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions. A couple questions, just 1-2 word answers. To start off, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Eat.
Okay, it's also a necessity, but it can't be a hobby. But you're in good shape.
No, good eating. Like going out and eating.
All right, cool. Okay, what's your favorite wine outside of Greece?
Rhone.
Or the Rhone. All right, as a region. Okay. Anything particular in the Rhone that you like more than others? Northern Rhone, Southern Rhone, Vacaras, Rastau?
I would say the Syrah, the Saint Joseph, for example.
Saint Joseph, beautiful. Northern Rhone, fantastic. What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to everything, but I like my favorite is soul.
All right.
It's a black man inside me. Yeah, R&B.
It's a little R&B. I got you.
Right,
you are.
Remember, I lived in Chicago for 2 years. Remember?
Yeah, he hung out at the blues bars. He did.
Yeah, I picked something up.
And you lived in New York, and you did your undergraduate in Massachusetts. No, where were you in undergrad?
No, Wesleyan in Connecticut.
Connecticut. Awesome. So, from all your travels all over the world, what's your favorite travel destination? It could be a country, a place, a continent, whatever.
That's a tough one. New York.
New York. All right. Good old USA. Awesome. Well, we love when you come to New York too. So now we're going to open it up to some questions from our awesome audience. So we have a question. And I'm going to read it because it's so well written. And this is from Danny Kleiman from Chicago, from the Heritage Wine Cellars. The myriad of factors about what variety rootstock to plant is a complex matrix. How important is soil pH in the mix of factors? Is it the most important, the second most important, the third most important?
I would say the most important at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, what we see is that this makes a big difference compared to you take one plot, you take the grapes from this plot and another plot, and you vinify them with completely the same ways, techniques, and you see two different wines. So depending on what you're doing, the soil is what makes a big difference.
Fantastic. Next question is, what are your favorite vintages in Naoussa?
Well, you go back to '94. It seems that all the odd years are better than the even ones. So, from as far as I remember, you know, I could go back to '82, or I think '82 was it, or '85 was fantastic, but I don't know these vintages. What I know is '94, '97 was really the two vintages of the decade, that decade. Then you have 2000, 2001. Then you have 2007. Then you have 2011. And 2019, I would say. 19 is a fantastic vintage. Yeah. Now, I only picked the 5-star ones, right? I mean, I think in Naoussa, as I said, it has bigger vintage variations compared to other regions in Greece. Still, not as big as other parts of the world, like France or north of Italy.
Okay. Now we have a question here also, because you mentioned Syrah and you're planting, how you like Syrah in your vineyard in Naoussa. Do you do 100% Syrah?
Well, we used to do 100% Syrah. Then we saw that didn't have so much interest. So we doing DOLES, the two olive trees, which is a blend of Syrah and Merlot. However, we've been we're thinking of relaunching a single vineyard Syrah in the next few years.
Okay.
We don't have anything ready yet.
And I can imagine it'll be very, very small production.
Very small production is going to be on the Diaporos family.
Okay. And then, and also a question here, Diaporos, does it still contain any Syrah?
Yes. That's a big debate. We have it even internally. The reason we are adding the Syrah in Diaporos is that although it loses the 100% Xinomavro taste,
and it loses the appellation designation.
It loses the appellation, you know. Although with 7% and 10% that we add, we could have even used it. Still, we're putting the Syrah just because the wine, I think, gets better. We bottled. Since 2011, with the vintage 2011, so we've been bottling Diaporos without the Syrah as well. So it's going to be quite interesting to see. Next year, we're going to launch this next to each other, so we see how the wine evolves over time.
Interesting. Great.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting to see 100% Diaporos PDO Naoussa.
And I've done the deconstructed at the winery where we've tasted the blocks separately with Syrah and without Syrah. But I'll reserve that judgment for everybody when that actually occurs. I have my opinion, but that doesn't matter. Another question is, let's see. Okay, here's a good question. And it's a question we'd like to ask all our winemakers too. What do you see the future of Greek wine, apart from COVID and what's going on today? How do you see Greece in the next 5 years on within Greece and also on the international stage?
I'm very optimistic. I think Greek wine has a long way to go. Now we have to put the numbers a little bit. We're only 1% of total world production, and we're only 0.1% of total exports. Now, this is because we consume most of the good wine in Greece. Not a lot of wine is exported. However, what I've been seeing, and I've been around for a while, what I've been seeing is that a lot of new things are happening in Greece. What happened in the 90s, you had the first revolution when we had, young guys, educated young guys, visionary as well, like Skouras, like Vasiliou, these guys that really took Greek wine and put them to the next level. You had a lot of investment in vineyards and in technology. However, what we see now, we see a lot of investment in the vineyards as well. First of all, we have vineyards that have been planted for 20 years, so they start giving like really ripe and really serious fruit. You have a lot of winemakers now who are thinking, they're not thinking just what's going to happen in Greece, but actually they travel, they see things, they understand the world market. And of course, I have a feeling that, the better the Greek wines get, the more people are going to be looking for it. I think Greece will get its place in the market. We're on our way. You, Ted, have been working for like, 30 years now, even more. Well,
Hey, don't make me that
you know.
old. Don't make me that old. Wait a minute.
Since you were 10 years old, I remember, right? So
Right out of the womb. Right out of the womb.
And actually, if I worked the U.S. market back in the 90s as a salesperson. Remember, I used to sell Greek wine back then, and people would laugh at me. So remember this guy in Miami? He told me, "Guy, why don't you take your bag and your wines and go back to Greece? This is not drinkable. And this is like the days when people just were discovering Merlot, right? So I think now that 9 out of 10 times, even 99 out of 100 times, when you take a Greek wine and you put it on a restaurant table, or people say, "Wow, that's serious." And if you ask me, the whites are better than the reds so far. Greek whites at around the $20 retail, $25 retail level are great values, even values for money. Are great these wines. Santorini is spearheading it. Santorini, big discussion. Let's not talk about it yet. Maybe another time.
No, let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about that.
And the reds, however, I think we have to work a little bit harder there.
Well, I just think they need a little more exposure when it comes to the Greek reds. And when people get exposed to them, they get excited about them because pound for pound, they punch over their weight. Yeah. Now, let's talk about Santorini, because a little known fact in the wine world is that Stelio has been a part of Domaine Sigalis for
10 years now. 10 years, 2009.
For 10 years, since 2009, as a minority partner, but recently has taken over the management of the domain on the island as of this vintage of this year. It's been 19 and 20. So we're looking for a lot of great things. Tell us in about 5 minutes, tell us your experience with that. Tell us what your goal is with that, and tell us where you think Santorini is going to in the next few years.
Right. Well, my first vintage Santorini was in 1985. At that time, we did. Let me tell you a little story. My father and my mother divorced when I was younger, right? So my mother apparently was seeing somebody who has a place in Santorini, or at least that's what my father thought. So one day he went to Santorini to see what was happening there. So anyway, he loved Santorini, and he said, like, this is a place that's fantastic for wine. So I was sent there in '85. The Boutaris company did not have a winery there. I did my first harvest in the Santo winery, in the Santo Co-op, yeah. And then 86, 87, 88, 89. I mean, this is when I started Santorini. I always believed in Santorini. Now, when my father and my uncle split the Boutaris, I had nothing Santorini. And then at one point, Paris was looking for a partner. We moved in. I believe the Sigalas brand is one of those unique brands in Greece and in the world. Ted has done a fantastic job in promoting Sigalas all these years and making almost mainstream in America, I dare to say. So now, with the help of a Greek investor, we bought Domaine Sigalas, and we're running it. We believe that there's a lot of potential. Sigalas had a string of bad years in the sense of he didn't have enough grapes, a little bit of financial distress, a little bit of some mistakes, some judgments. He didn't have grapes. He didn't have so he couldn't have wine. So there's been a lot of out of stocks. I believe in the next few years we'll straighten this out. And I really, really believe that Santorini will keep spearheading the Greek wine revolution.
And just for clarity's sake, and make sure Perisigalis is still engaged. He's still in the winemaking process. He's still has his touch.
He remains the president of the company and winemaker.
Okay, great. So there is a continuation there. There's going to be some drastic changes there, and you've been working with him for so many years. Nothing's going to change in terms of what goes into the bottle. Only improvements.
Only improvements, we hope. Yeah.
Only improvements. And we're very stoked to see that occur. So outside of Santorini, outside of Asiptico, outside of Xinomavro, what is the variety, Greek variety, that you think in the next 5 to 10 years will become a more important variety for Greek winemakers?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one, Ted. Yeah.
I have an idea, but I want you to come up.
Yeah.
You mentioned Mavrodaphne for a second.
Right, Mavrodaphne. I think one Mavrodaphne. Once we sort out the legal issues, because now you cannot call a dry red with the name Mavrodaphne, so we have to sort this out. We hope we're going to be able to do it this year. I think Mavrodaphne is very, very interesting.
How about Mavrotragano?
Mavrotragano, absolutely. No, it's very small, though, right? I mean, Mavrotragano is what 100 tons a year, all of Greece. You know, it's very, very small. Right. However, it's one of those varieties that have been overlooked. If you ask me, Mavrotragano is great for blending. Now, as of another red variety that's actually has been very, very. I've seen some nice work the last few years. Just have to see that they continue doing it. Is Lignona. Lignona, grown in Thessaly, gives this lighter style reds. You know, like the Chinon style reds that are quite popular. So a little bit of work there. As of the whites, of course, you have Moscofilero, which people like Skouras have taken it to another dimension. You know, we always thought that Moscofilero was the easy Pinot Grigio of Greece. Now we see work from Skouras that like, wow, drink this wine is like this is serious variety. Malagousia is very popular. Not one of my personal favorites.
Right.
But it's very, very popular. And I would put my money a little bit on Vidiano from Crete. I think Crete is one of the regions that is upcoming in Greece. I think Crete is going to be the California of Greece, but it's going to be even more once you get a bit organized. And we see some very, 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 very nice result. Just tasted my friend Milonas Savatiano the other day. I flipped out. I just couldn't believe it was Savatiano.
Right. I agree with you on Vidiano. I think that's going to be the next really great breakout white variety. It's going to be planted all over Greece, and we'll see different expressions and different executions on that. Savatiano, I think, is a variety that has a big runway ahead of it in terms of expression. And one variety that I like out of reds that I think has a lot of potential going forward is Mavroudi, which needs to be played with more.
This will play people need to understand what is Mavroudi, because for example, in Naoussa, Mavroudi we call everything else than Xinomavro.
Okay.
So Mavroudi means little black. Everything that's black, and it's not. However, in Thrak, in the east side of North Greece, there you have some very good results, very good examples.
Right, and those are the ones I've tasted, and I've seen a lot of great examples of not consistent. We don't have consistent farming. We don't have clonal selection, but I think it's a variety in its best form. When I tasted it, I really, really enjoyed the complexity and the dark fruit.
Beautiful dark, exactly. Beautiful dark fruit character.
Yeah. We have also a person chiming in here, Evan, which is asking. He's like, Liatico. How about Liatico? And you mentioned Crete, that might be the next great up and coming.
Liatico as well. In Liatico, what I've been tasting the last few. I mean, I haven't tasted a lot of Liatico the last 2-3 years. It's been like a revolution in Crete. But in Liatico, I've seen the two extremes. You have the Coop wine, which is a a nice everyday wine when they remember to do it well. And you have Economo, which is a cult winemaker. You know, it's a fun, unbelievable wines, right? So I haven't tasted anything more mainstream or like multiple examples of Liatico. So I wouldn't be able to say even.
Right. You have to try Douloufakis because him and Economo are the two pioneers on these varieties, hands down. We have a question. What percentage of your production, and it's a big question, is exported? I mean, let's bifurcate it. What percentage of your Naoussa production is exported, and what percentage of your Amidion production is exported?
In Naoussa, to be even more precise, Ramnista is 85% exported. So it's really opening up some inroads there. Total of Naoussa, it's more like 60%, because we make also the Ktima, which is a very popular brand in Greece. So from our Naoussa production, more than about 60% is exported. Of our total production, it's around 30%.
About 30%. Again,
30% and growing.
Right. Yeah, but again, you are one of the brands, so one of the wineries. I don't want to say brand because it makes you sound like you're a factory. You're one of the winery names that people trust and drink in Greece. You're not an export-oriented fake label. We've been talking about that in the last 4 interviews that we're doing, that these are the wineries that people in Greece, that you'll find on wine lists, people in Greece consume. You are not just a winery building wines just for export markets.
No. And, you know, we've been, what we've seen the last like 20 days is that, I'm sure it's all over the world, people have been moving to value for money brands, and they're moving to known brands. And so it's been quite good for Yianni. You know, some people have been telling me that, you know, people like distributors in Greece, they were telling me there's not a single order that I ship without a Yianni wine. Thank God.
That's great. That's right.
And they go to something they know. And, you know, for me, and I mentioned before that the expression value for money, I think it's very, very important to produce something that's value for money, even if it's for $5 or even for $50. You have to really try to make sure that you give what is worth the customer's money.
Absolutely. Here, and I want to share a screen and some of my favorite pictures of Stelio here. And here we go. We're gonna.
To give an example, our Paranga is selling fantastically in retail and in wine bars and bars in Athens. Oh, there you go. I didn't know this picture.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we have Blé à l'Époux, which is one of our cult wines that's selling for 50 euros retail per bottle, and it's always out of stock. Why is that? I think because, you know, buying wine is a very complex equation, you know, and some people would just be willing to pay the extra buck for something that they feel happy and great putting it in their cellar or drinking it with their friends.
Right. And here we have a great little picture for you people that are out there to kind of like a little bottle recognition. It's sparkling rosé. This is 100% Xinomavro. This is a Medion, a Sirtico, cultivated in a Medion. Great alternative to Santorini. And if we had more time, I'd love to dive into that, maybe the next conversation. This is the new bottling of the Cuvée Village. This would be the level 1, 100% Xinomavro. And then here we have the Ramnista at the end, the very famous single vineyard. And here is a state grown, a classic blend of Xinomavro, Merlot, and a little bit of Syrah. Do we still have Syrah?
And about 20% Syrah. It's really the estate blend, as we say.
Right.
It's what is planted.
Right. And this is all declassified Naoussa fruit, Ramnista fruit that goes into this. So great value. Talk about punching over your weight and value for money. One of the great values of money in all of Greece is this bottle of wine here. And then I always love sharing this shot. This is George Stelio, and this is the president of the Greek Wine Federation, and Stelio is the vice president of the Greek Winemakers Federation. So these people don't only dedicate themselves to their own business, they dedicate their time, their energy, and their money to the greater good of the whole industry. These people are not only the pioneers in their own little space. Stelios is a pioneer in helping move the ball forward for all of Greece. So when we're talking to Stelios, he doesn't not only represent Yianni, he represents the Greek wine industry. So that's what's great about having him on the call and getting his insights, because they're not strictly about himself. They are a broader conversation, and he has great insight. And these guys at one time, 30 years ago, were just startup guys that nobody knew about, and they rose organically on their own to now be the heads of their industry, selected by the members of their industry to represent them on the international and national stage as well. And here is Stelios, always up. This is the classic great picture of Stelios. This man's always ready for a party.
Where is that?
That's at the hotel in Naoussa.
Okay.
In the backyard. In the backyard. So this man's always up for a party, and that's why we love him. He's not only does he know his craft really well, but he's also a good time. So I want to say thank you. We're wrapping up. We're right at 2 o'clock. Thank you, Stelios, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your insights, your passion, and your history. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We have our next session is tomorrow with Milo Nas, and talking about Savatgiano and talking about the Attica growing region. So I hope everybody can join us tomorrow as well. And thank you again, everybody, for joining in. Thank you, Diamond Wine Importer team, for helping us put this together. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Stelios, be safe, be well. Your hugs and kisses to your family. And we look forward to seeing you in person in New York, your favorite place in the world outside of Greece.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, everybody, for being here. All the best. Stay safe, stay home, and in no time, all this mess will be behind us like a bad dream. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.